And they're all, remember, called meninges. So if I say name a meninge, it's not going to be part of the brain. It's going to be part of that dense connecting tissue that covers the brain. Then these are real good optic nerves right here. This is an optic nerve. Then we go to the eyes. And then right in the middle of that cross where I'm touching right there, that's the optic chiasma. And then you can't see the optic tracts because if we pulled, here's the tracts right here. This is an optic tract, that's an optic tract. So the bottom of the cross is here, the top of the cross is here. And in between the two is the optic chiasma, it's called. And the space underneath this whole thing, again, is the circle of Willis.
Also called
And I'll say on the test, name the space or cavity, that, like the circle of Willis or a ventricle or whatever it is. So, and again, pituitary gland is right here. You can't even hardly see the pons. They're sitting up and right in here. But this is the medulla right here underneath. And the pons sit right on top of that. But now this brain right here, this is the better one to show you all the parts if I wanted to show you, because the pituitary is gone. But here's your olfactory lobes right here. And this is the ventral view. This is underneath the brain. So these are olfactory lobes or bulbs here. This is the optic tracts going into the brain. The optic chiasma would be in the center. This is the mammillary body, this little tongue-like structure right there. And since the pituitary is gone, the hole right here is called the hypophysis. So if there's no pituitary, and this is gone, then we call it the hypophysis, which actually is another name for the pituitary. Then if we go back here, here's the pons. There's two pons here. This is the medulla oblongata, this whole section here. Then this, obviously, is the spinal cord right there. So in some of the pans, I'll guarantee in one pan I'm going to have a number stuck right here because everything's going to be pinned with numbers or stickers if it's a model with numbers. So if I have a sticker, a thing in here, I'll probably say name the view. It'll be on a sheet next to it. So the view would be ventral view on this one. So that's underneath the brain. This one here on top of the brain, remember you can't take the pia mater off. That's what makes it shiny. So again, if I put a pin up here and said name the meninge, you're going to say pia mater. If I said name the part of the brain, you're going to say cerebrum, because the cerebral hemispheres are right here. If I said name the elevation, that's going to be a gyri. If I say name these little depressions, the little black lines, those are sulci. Now if I say name the groove right here, that's the interventricular sulcus. That big groove right here, it's between the two cerebral hemispheres. So it's called, what'd you say? Well, that's I'm thinking of that heart. I was just thinking that. It's the longitudinal cerebral fissure here. This is the transverse fissure here, what I told you to label on here. Yeah, we were just talking about the heart in another class. That's the sulcuses are in the heart. But this is the longitudinal cerebral fissure here. This is the transverse fissure here. This is the cerebellum, if I said name the part of the brain. And this is, again, the spinal cord's out here. And the view would be dorsal view on that part of the brain. So I'll have some questions that this, if you're looking at this view here, this is called a sagittal or mid-sagittal section. If you call it sagittal, that's fine. These are mirror images. So, and we don't cut these. They come this way. They've already been cut. But the other part of the brain would be going this way. And if on tests, some people just look at the brain like this. They don't look at the corresponding side, the other, and it gets all confused. But it's the same thing either way you're looking at it. But this is the spinal cord here. That's the spinal cord. Where it bulges right here, first bulges, all this right here is the medulla oblongata right here. This is the pons, that little dip right here, that's the pons right here. And if we go forward, this little structure right here, that's the optic chiasma. That's the center of that optic cross right there. Then right in front, again, this would be olfactory lobe right here. Will be up in front of the brain. There's no pituitary gland on this. It's gone. So the mammillary body, you have to really use your imagination, but the mammillary body is right here. It's hard to see it. I'd probably ask that from the top of the brain because it's much easier to see. But if the pituitary was here, it'd come off right here. It'd be between the optic chiasma and the mammillary body. So the pituitary would hang just like this, right? Like that right there. This whole structure here is the cerebellum. And then the little tree-like structure inside the cerebellum is called the arbor vitae. So if I said name the part of the brain, you'd say cerebellum. If I said name the structure, you'd say arbor vitae if it's the little tree-like structure. If I said name the space right here, that's the fourth ventricle of the brain. So space or cavity, that's the fourth ventricle. All these ventricles and spaces are for cerebral spinal fluid. That's why they're there. Then this little structure right here, that's the aqueduct. It goes from the fourth ventricle up here, the third ventricle is right here. So between the third ventricle and the fourth ventricle, there's a little structure called the aqueduct for cerebral spinal fluid. Then all the way to the surface, this is the transverse fissure right here. Same thing we saw from the top. So that circulates cerebral spinal fluid. This big space right here, that's called the lateral ventricle. And that's actually the first and second ventricles put together, but you can just call it lateral ventricle. There's 4 major ventricles in the brain. This is first and second, that's third, and this is fourth. And they're all just basically to get fluid circulated in the brain. So then, this structure right here, that one, that's the superior colliculus right here, this structure right here. That's the one the third ventricle's right under. So if I put say name the part of the brain right here, that's the superior colliculus. Then this little structure right here, you see the little tiny, where everybody's put their probes right there, that's the thalamus right here. Sort of a roundish structure right here. That's right here where my probe is. That's the thalamus. And if the pituitary was there, I might put a thing right here. What's right above the pituitary? The hypothalamus. So if the pituitary was here, and I'll show you in a minute if it's there, if it was there, I could put a pin right above it. That would be hypothalamus. Above the hypothalamus is the thalamus itself right here. So then on this ventricle, or this lateral ventricle right here, and it's kind of broken up at the bottom, but the bottom portion, if we actually get in here and look at the bottom, the top part of it is called the corpus callosum, makes the top boundary, and the bottom boundary, which is not very good on this one, I'll have to get a better one, is called the fornix. So that's the 2 edges or the 2 boundaries for that lateral ventricle. Bottom's the fornix, the top is the corpus callosum. So that's that one. So, and again, this would be, the pineal gland is not on this, and the pineal gland is going to sit right here, and I don't think this is not it. It's going to sit right in this area right here is where the pineal gland would be. It's a little feather-like. I'll find another one and show you in a second. But so this is just sagittal section. That's the ventral view underneath. That's basically the dorsal view on top. So, and again, this is the reason you can see the pituitary is because that is dura mater right here. Now, there's another one in one of these I was going to show you guys.